But now we'll move on to communication strategies for hiring quality employees. When hiring opportunities occur, it's incredibly important that you, as someone in a leadership position, participate in every stage of the hiring process. And it's important to get everybody on the team involved in this process as well. And it starts with developing the new employee profile. So the hiring process begins long before the first candidate arrives for an interview and lasts long after orientation and training. You're not simply looking for a replacement of a vacant position, but you want to know exactly what you want. What skills do you want the person to have? Do you want to make sure there's good person, job, and person organization fit so that the person's personality aligns with the organizational culture and the demands of the job? If you are not involved in writing the interview questions, it is important that you take some sort of initiative in reviewing them and giving your input and ultimately your approval. So once the position has been advertised, those questions need to be drafted, and whether you're responsible or not, you have to be involved in some way. And some good strategies for interview questions is not to ask leading questions, which point the candidate toward a certain answer, and also to incorporate a mix of traditional, like, tell me about yourself and your work experiences, and behavioral questions in which you introduce situations and ask them how they've handled them in the past or how they hypothetically would handle them. It's also important to greet new employees upon arrival, just to support that organizational assimilation that we talked about last week and reduce some of those newcomer uncertainties for that new employee. And also ensure that that person gets a proper orientation and training by assigning training duties. Don't assume that it'll just happen. So now we're going to talk about some strategies for dealing with problematic behaviors and attitudes. I think your textbook is a little naughty here too, because it characterizes these problems as problematic people, and it engages in a lot of that yucky stereotyping that we kind of talked about in chapter 5. So I kind of amended this to root the conception of the problem in the behaviors and attitudes of the people, which can be changed, not the people themselves viewed as static, stereotypical individuals. Everybody has the opportunity for growth, and true leaders like to foster this and handle it appropriately. So that's how I want to frame this conversation. But first, you have to know the facts. Don't take somebody's word as mere explanation for a problem. Make sure you gather further evidence, talk to other people, and make sure you check in with the individual who may be displaying some sort of problematic behavior or attitude allegedly. Also, ensure privacy. Make sure that if you're having this conversation with that person, that you're doing it in a private, respectful manner that doesn't subjugate them to further criticism beyond just your conversation. Also, refer to written organizational rules and policies as you're trying to educate this person about why their behavior or attitude might not be so productive in your workplace. Be sure to also develop a plan of action. Make sure you tell them how they can improve and give them strategies to go about doing so. And finally, and on a positive note, let them know that you value them as a member of this organization and the things that they bring to the table. Now we're going to talk about giving feedback and some good ways to do that. First and foremost, you have to set clear expectations in order for anybody to fulfill them. So first, you have to do that before you can critique someone for not meeting those expectations. And also important to provide feedback regularly. So make it routine. Don't make feedback this surprising thing that everyone's scared of. Make it a continuous communicative process between you and your followers. Also, hold team members accountable by delivering constructive, praise team members. It's very important to give positive feedback as well as criticism. People like to know when they're doing things well. It's very important to let them know. Now hold team members accountable. And you can do this by delivering constructive feedback. And in that, be sure to admit your own mistakes, begin positively, use encouragement, instill in them the belief that they can improve, and praise that improvement. Feedback can be a motivational tool. So use it as something to lift morale up and just, reinforce a positive organizational culture. And then finally, it is important to enact consequences when expectations aren't met and you've done all these other things to foster the individual meeting those expectations. That is all for today. Kind of a longer video, big chapter, but we just first distinguished between leadership and power, and then managers and leaders. We talked about a bunch of leadership theories, both behavioral and situational, and also talked a little bit about transformational leadership. We discussed some communication strategies for hiring quality employees, strategies for dealing with problematic behaviors and attitudes, and how to effectively give feedback. That is all for this chapter, and I will see you all next week.